Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sara. I'm your host, and in today's episode, I'm catching you up on some of the books I'm reading this week. This first pick was purely an aesthetic choice. It was sitting out for display for the end of St. Patrick's Day holiday, and I have not read Oscar Wilde in a long time, we'll say at least since high school, and I have never read The Picture of Dorian Gray. And I'm going to be honest with you, I picked up this book because of its size. It is literally the teensiest little book ever. I'm going to try to be really careful because this little camera that I have here on the laptop is out of pocket sensitive and just decides to stop focusing on my face. So I apologize if there's any interruption with the video and the focusing. We're working on it. I'm going to be so dead serious that I don't know at all what this is even about, but I've heard about it for years and years, and I thought, what the heck, I'll give it a go. So that is in the pile. The next book on my list is for a book club that I have at the end of the month. It is Paradise by Toni Morrison. I included this in my last book roundup, and I had chosen it too early. I was reading it in the wrong month, so I stopped, and I'm going to complete this baby now. Very, very excited. The book group that I am in is filled with some really beautiful women that are just so dedicated to understanding and change and empathy and community. It's just a really beautiful place to find myself at the very end of the month. So if you are looking to join a book group, I will include the link in the show notes for you to be able to do that. It's a very low entry fee. It's $5 a month for a subscription to Chelsea Long's page. And she and Carrie Coley are the ones that lead the book group. And every month for the remainder of the year, there will be a different book that's being read. And in the month of March, we are reading Toni Morrison's Paradise. So I haven't read this. It's been a while since I've read some Toni Morrison, so I'm very excited to dive into that. Another book that I didn't really know too much of what it was, but again, I am just pretty good at being able to pick up a book because of how much I like its covers. So this is the cover. It is Original Love by Henry Shukman. It's the 4 Inns on the Path of Awakening, and they are utilizing meditation, mindfulness, suffering, just so many anecdotes to the way in which we live our life. And I was really excited to pick this one up because there's just a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions swirling around in this book, but a lot of really beautiful anecdotes around it. So I'm very excited to read this. If I like it, I'm hoping to have the author on because it's just a really beautiful layout of how you can start to think about the ways in which you experience and feel love for both yourself and the outward experiences of love that we all can engage in. And there's never been a better time for it, honestly, for being dialed in here. The final book is The Gift of Restlessness by Casey Tigret, and it is Spirituality for Unsettled Seasons. I loved the idea of this book. First, it's just a quick little read. Casey is a speaker and a director of spiritual direction practice for soul care, which helps church and nonprofit leaders restore health to their souls. He is the author of Becoming Curious and The Practice of Remembering. And he also has a podcast. So maybe I'll reach out to him and see if we can get a little cross pod going here. But the book is really beautifully laid out. It's very real and raw. It's honest. And it does really kind of rip the Band-Aid off of thinking about the ways in which suffering plays into your life and whether or not you may want to segue that into creating a deeper relationship with yourself and the universe or God or the creator, the source, whatever you'd like to name it, them, he, she, all of the above. And I think that books are one of the best ways that we can kind of just tap into the thought and the idea of trying something new. And if you find yourself on a spiritual journey or considering a spiritual journey, then this book may absolutely be something that you may want to tap into. I have so many books that I've read over the last few months, and they have been really hovering over the topic of religion, Jesus, organized religion, spirituality. And I'll tell you, I'm coming to the tail end of it. And it has now led me to a place where I am settling into workbooks to learn more and to dive a little bit deeper into my understanding. And as we are in Lent, if you find yourself a celebrator and a believer, I want to very quickly highlight the Blessed Is She Lent workbook. Oops, that was my pen. Sorry, Sophie, just hit my dog. This workbook is absolutely stunning. And for a brand new person to anything about God or Jesus, let alone never even knowing what Lent was about or what it was for, this book has been really paramount in helping me to kind of tap into that. But let's just take a look at the beauty of this book. There's so many beautiful paintings. Let me stop at the next one. Here we go. Just like stunning works of art that complement where you're at within the Lent story and the Lent journey. What I found really surprising and really enjoying so far is knowing that Lent just is literally encased itself around the focus of suffering and how we find ourselves able to not only meet our own suffering and the depths of that, but be available for the suffering of others, even if that just means being by their side and witnessing their suffering and letting them know that they're not alone in that time of absolute heartache. This rings very close to my heart, this whole topic of Lent, and knowing now that it is based around suffering and grief and anticipatory grief for what Jesus knew was to come just is, oh my gosh, knocks me on my butt. I wish that I would have knew a little bit more about this when I was dealing with my anticipatory grief for 20 years before, 25 years to be exact, before my father passed away. And then the 5, now 6 years of grief since his passing. And it's comforting in a weird way to know that I am not the only one that was left to my own devices during the worst times and periods of grief and sadness and fear in my life surrounding my father's illness, and knowing that I was not the only one that was let down by everyone around them. At many points in my life, I'll say now that my husband has been an absolute rock to me in every regard with my grief and my rebirth of just coming back to who I am after all is said and done. But my God, I can count on one hand over the 25 years of dealing with this, the people that truly had my back. And there's so many periods of silence and suffering that are had that we go through alone. And parts of the Blessed Is She Lent workbook have just been really therapeutic for me, and just thinking about how I deal with grief when I am alone and when I do not have the support system that I need around me. And it's just one of those really beautiful blessings that we get to find for ourselves in the breadcrumbs of life that are kind of just spread throughout our learnings and the things we're interested in and what we're doing and how we're growing and evolving. And I want to encourage you today to lean into something that felt like a breadcrumb to you. There's some treasure or some iota of discovery waiting for you there. And I think you'll find that when you start to follow the synchronicities and the breadcrumbs, you really do begin to not only unfold the path that's meant for you, the one that's been laid out for you and is so much grander than anything you could ever possibly dream about, but it's going to be the one that's going to develop you to the absolute highest potential of your soul and your purpose of why you're here and what you're meant to do while here. And I, for one, am absolutely rooting you on that path and that journey. And I hope that you find it, and I hope that you run with it as soon as possible, because life is for living and time is wasting, friends. My Richies, I hope you have an amazing day. And as always, make life rich.